Inde Lucius Tarquinius regnare coebit, cui propter facta cognomen superbus datum est. Okay, so Lucius Tarquinius, here is our main verb coebit, complementary infinitive because it talks about what he began to do. To whom, relative clause marker, dative, and it points all the way back to Tarquinius. So we've got a relative clause that starts with this relative pronoun cui, and let's see where it ends. Oh, it ends at this verb datum est, and in between, prepositional phrase, and the subject of this relative clause is the word cognomen, the name, and what is that name? Superbus, the name superbus, datum est, and here's your two-part verb, perfect passive. Next sentence. Principes patrum, qui servium dilexerant interfecit. Okay, we have es, nominative or accusative plural. We're going to have to hold that thought and find out. We don't know for sure. The chiefs, okay, don't be fooled by patrum. That is not accusative singular because pater is third declension, so it is genitive plural. So the chiefs of what? Of the Senate. And then we have this nice relative clause to describe the chiefs of the Senate. Right here, qui points to the chiefs, or maybe to the senators since they're all in the same group. Subject, direct object, verb. Oh, and then we get the main verb, interfecit. Okay, so this is singular. Well, if we have a singular verb here, then we know that principes cannot be nominative plural because they have to match. So this must, since it is an es plural, it must be your direct object. So then, what is the subject of interfecit? Who's doing the killing? Since it has not been provided, we have to go back to the previous sentence and assume it was Lucius Tarquinius. So, Lucius Tarquinius interfecit the principes patrum. Suum corpus armatis circumsipsit. Okay, suum corpus is your direct object. How do we know these things? Well, suum is accusative, singular, and corpus is also accusative singular because it's neuter. I bet you knew that, right? Of course. So there's your direct object. And then we have an ablative here, and then your main verb. So Tarquinius, again the subject, he did this to what? To his own body. With what? With armatis. Well, if you had just executed the previous king and then killed off a bunch of your political rivals, I wonder what you would do with your own body. Ponder that. Judicia capitalium rerum sine conciliis per se solus exercebat. Okay, we have another ambiguous form because judicia is an A, and that's neuter, so it's either nominative or accusative plural. We will have to hold that thought again until we have more information. Capitalium rerum goes together. That's a noun-adjective pair. Capital offenses, of capital offenses, sine conciliis, prepositional phrase. Per se, another prepositional phrase. Oh, and then we have this solus. Well, solus is masculine nominative singular. And if I know that I have a nominative singular thing here, that helps to resolve the case of judicia because we're not going to have two nominatives running around unless they're joined. So, since this is nominative, this judicia must be accusative, so it's probably the direct object. And then here's our main verb, exercebat. So, he alone was doing this to the judicia of capital offenses, and he was doing it sine conciliis and per se, like all by himself. Ita paterat accidere in exilium agere bonis spoliare omnes quos cupiebat. Did you notice a pattern when I was reading? I noticed a pattern. I noticed, first of all, that we have the main verb poterat, and it takes a complementary infinitive, which is good because I notice we have one infinitive here, and another infinitive here, and another infinitive here, prepositional phrase over here. So all of these infinitives, accidere, agere, and spoliare, are all infinitives dependent upon our main verb, paterat. So he was able to do all these things. Let's see. Spoliare is an interesting verb because it takes a direct object. You can despoil everyone from. You can literally separate everyone from their goods. Bonis is ablative here. And then we have a teeny tiny little relative clause here, quos cupiebat, and quos is referring to omnes. Notice that omnes is probably the direct object of all the infinitives. So he can accutere omnes, he can in exilium agere omnes, and he can spoiliare omnes. So he can do all these things to anyone he likes. Must be nice to be a Tarquinius Superbus. Maybe I should try that power sometime. Etsi rege superiores senatum de omnibus rebus consulere soliti erant, Tarquinius domesticis conciliis rem publicam administravit. So even if, so that introduces a dependent clause, despite all this stuff, even if what? Let's see, we've got our subject here, rege superiores. It doesn't mean superior like better, but more like previous kings. So there's our nominative. We have an accusative direct object, that of course is the Senate, and a prepositional phrase about all the stuff. And then we have an infinitive, consulere. Well, what's this infinitive doing here? Oh, that's because the verb soliti, well, erant means was, but soliti means accustomed or usually. So it takes an infinitive to complete the thought. Even if they were accustomed to what? To consulere. So consulere is completing that thought. Tarquinius, okay, so that's our dependent clause, and then Tarquinius is the subject of our new clause. He's nominative. Domesticis conciliis, noun-adjective pair there. Rem publicam, that's your direct object. Direct object, I'm anticipating domesticis conciliis, probably ablative or dative plural, but I mean, obviously the ending is ablative or dative plural, but I'm saying it's probably ablative. And that administrava is your main verb. So Tarquinius took care of the state in domesticis conciliis. Bellum pacem fuedera societates per se ipsa fecit. Okay, we have this interesting list of direct objects. How do we know they're direct objects? Well, we got a em, accusative plural or nominative plural neuter, and societates. So when we put them all together, we're assuming they're the same case. Notice there's no connector here like we would normally expect. This is called asyndeton. I'll even write it down for you. A-S-Y-N-D-E-T-O-N. And asyndeton means that you've got such an interesting list, you're not going to bother putting an and to connect them. So all these guys are the direct object. Prepositional phrase again. Per se, we've seen that a lot. On his own, through himself, that sort of thing. Ipse, nominative, it's an intensifier, so it means Tarquinius himself, he made or did all this stuff. Per se. Latinorum gentem sibi maxime conciliabat. So he was driving people in Rome crazy, but he was smart enough. Let's see. Latinorum gentem, those are the Latin tribes, the tribe of the Latins near Rome. That's your direct object because gentem is accusative. Dative here, adverb, and then of course Tarquinius is the subject of this verb. So Tarquinius was conciliating to himself the tribe of the Latins. There, I actually translated a whole sentence for you. Octavio Mamilio Tusculano is longe nobilissimus Latinorum erat, filiam in matrimonium dat. Okay, notice this guy, Octavius Mamilius Tusculanus. Well, what's special about him? Well, it's a long name, and he is dative. So if he's dative, we're expecting a direct object and a verb of maybe giving or showing. We'll find out. But before we get that, there's this nifty phrase describing him. Is refers to Octavius. He, and then this is a simple linking sentence. Is erat nobilissimus. He was the most noble of the Latins. Longe, by far. What about this guy in the dative? Oh, here's our direct object. Well, we've seen this pattern before. Tarquinius does something to his daughter, to the guy in the dative case. Oh, in matrimony. And then, of course, unexpectedly, right, there's a verb of giving. So, another political marriage. Cum jam magna Tarquinii auctoritas inter Latinorum principes esset concilium in certam diem convocavit. What's going on with this cum? When, since, because, although, or with? Well, we're going to eliminate with because there's no ablative running around after it. We're going to eliminate although because there's no however in the second half of the sentence. So that leaves when or because. I'm probably going to say, it looks like a when. You can just kind of feel it. When, no, where's it start? And here's it ends. Notice we've got that subjunctive verb, so it does make sense. Magna auctoritas. Okay, there's our subject. Nominative singular. And Tarquinii modifies auctoritas as well. So the great authority of Tarquin. And then we've got a prepositional phrase. But among the chiefs, whose chiefs? The chiefs of the Latins. When his authority was ginormous. And then let's see. Oh, concilium, either direct object or subject because of the We're going to have to wait and see. But we also have a prepositional phrase on a certain day. Oh, convocavit. So that tells us that concilium is most likely the direct object because Tarquinius is the guy who would be calling the concilium. Conveniunt frequentes prima luce. Prima luce, ablative of time when. Frequentes is your subject and convenient is your verb. Ipse Tarquinius, diem quidam servavit, said Paulo ante solus occasum venit. Okay, what's going on here? First of all, we know that Tarquinius called everybody together. He called a council together. And everyone got there prima luce. Prima luce, first light. But Tarquinius himself, and Tarquinius being in charge, he had even picked the day. But when did he arrive? He did not arrive at prima luce, but rather ablative of a degree of difference. This is a teeny tiny bit before. Before what? Before the occasum, the setting. Solus is genitive, the setting of the sun. So everybody else got there first thing in the morning, and he showed up kind of late. Turnus Herdonius Ericinius verociter absentem Tarquinium accusaverat. Okay, this guy, Turnus Herdonius Ericinius, has a ginormous, interesting name, and he is all our subject. What did he do? Well, he did it fiercely, and he did it to Tarquin when he was not there. Oh, there it is. Accusaverat. It doesn't just mean accuse, but it means like complain about, because he was probably mad for having to wait around all day. I can only imagine the horrible things I would say about somebody who was that rude. Dixit Tarquinium patientiam Latinorum temptare et affectare imperium in eos. So, this guy, Turnus Herdonius Ericinius, he said, and we should recognize that dixit as a kissing verb, a verb of saying, and it probably introduces an indirect statement. So we're going to bracket it off. Remember, that's our accusative infinitive construction. So we have accusative 1 and accusative 2. No, this is not patient Tarquinius. Tarquinius is a noun, and patientia, patience, is a noun. So I am assuming that Tarquinius is the subject, and patientiam is the direct object of our accusative infinitive construction. And whose patience? The patience of the Latins. What is Tarquinius doing to the patience of the Latins? He is trying it. So there's one thing that Tarquinius is doing in the infinitive mood. And another thing, another infinitive that he's doing. And what is he doing it to? He's doing it to the imperium in eos. Rex hoc cognito, quia pro imperio palam turnum interficere non poterat, confestum statuit falso crimine eum opprimere. Deviousness of Tarquinius Superbus is just so cool. Okay, what are we talking about? We've got a subject here, and we have an ablative absolute here with this noun and or adjective having been cognitoed. Okay, we have quia. Well, that's always because, which means we're starting a new clause, and it's probably going to end at poterat. So far we have the subject, and then we have two dependent clauses, and we still haven't gotten to the main part yet. Well, let's pick apart the second dependent clause, because prepositional phrase, palam, do not get this mixed up with an accusative noun. It is actually an adverb. Of course you wouldn't mix it up, because you know the dictionary entry. Okay, turnum, there is a direct object, so there's an accusative. Interficere non poterat. There is a verb of this dependent clause, and of course you recognize that interficere is completing the verb poterat. Thus, interficere is a complementary infinitive. So because of all this stuff, once this was known, this thing being whatever Turnus, Herodinius, Arachinius had said previously, the king, we're still waiting for his reaction, and that's going to come in our main clause. Confessum, adverb. Statuit, he decided. Okay, whatever he decided, it's probably going to take an infinitive to complete it. But before we get to the infinitive, bam, noun-adjective pair with a false crime. Eum, I wonder who the eum is going to be. Well, it's not the king, because he's a subject, so it's probably Turnus, Herodinius, Arachinius. So him, oh, the king decided. Here's the infinitive that completes that verb. Statuit, primere, they go together. Another complementary infinitive. Isn't that sneaky? He can't kill him right away, so instead he's going to trump up charges. Did I just say trump? Sorry about that, guys. Proxima igitur nocte, auctore Tarquinio, quidam Archini, turno in imici, in derversiorum eius magnum numerum gladiorum clam into lerent. Wow, this is dirty pool. Okay, in order to really understand this, you need to know that Arachinius means the guy from this place, Arachinia. So Turnus Herodonius was a guy from Arachinia. And in this sentence, we have quidam Arachini, other guys from Arachinia. Just wanted to get that out of that way. But before we get there, let's see. Proxima nocte, that is an ablative of time when. Therefore, since the king was mad, on the next night, auctore Tarquinio. Ooh, look, we have an ablative noun 1, an ablative noun 2. This is another freaky ablative absolute, not a noun and participle combination, but instead a noun and noun combination. You can have that for an ablative absolute. So with Tarquinius being the auctore, not the author, but more like the instigator, what happened on the next night? Certain Arachinians, who are our subject, so we'll mark that as nominative, certain Arachinians, and the next phrase describes them, unfriendly to our poor hapless Turnus. So inimici is nominative, and Turnus is dative. What about these guys who didn't like Turnus? In derversiorum, okay, that's part of his house, prepositional phrase, and it's his house, so the eius goes with it. Magnum numerum, there's your direct object, a ginormous number, gladiorum, ha, really, of weapons. Okay, so the enemies of Arachinius did something to a ginormous number of weapons, and they did it clam, which is another word that looks like an accusative noun but isn't. It is an adverb. What was the other word we saw like that? Oh, it was palam and clam, two adverbs that look like nouns. Dirty pool. So what did they do? They brought a ginormous number of weapons into his house. Doesn't this sound like some sort of government conspiracy? Tarquinius, Paulo ante lucum, ad se principes Latinorum vocavit, certioresque de gladiis celatis fecit. Okay, before we figure out what he says, let's take a peek here. We got a subject. Oh, look, we saw that Paulo before. Another ablative of degree of difference, a little bit before, by a little bit. Ante lucum, before daylight, by a little bit. So slightly before daylight, what happened? Ad se, prepositional phrase, principes, oh, there's your direct object. The chiefs of the Latins, they keep running around. Oh, and then there's your verb. Tarquinius called those guys to him. I can imagine getting that call. And, oh, I love this, certiores. Remember from De Bello Gallico, Caesar certior factus est, Caesar was made certain. So in this instance, it is Tarquinius. He made the chiefs of the Latins certain. So he told them about what? About de gladiis celatis. I didn't realize that there was a limit on the number of swords that you could have in your house, but apparently poor Turnus from Arachinius had too many. Cognovi inquit turnum cupere latinorum solum imperium tenere et iam necum omnium parare. So this is what Tarquinius says. He is so sneaky. Cognovi, I have learned. And that, of course, introduces an indirect statement. So we are expecting lots of accusatives and infinitives to run around because learning is a kissing verb. It is a knowing verb, knowing, sensing, or saying. So I learned that something happened. Let's see what I learned. I learned that. We're bracketing off our indirect statement. Turnus, okay, there's a subject. Cupere, there's our infinitive. Turnus does this. He wants, what does he want? Well, the problem is cupere takes its own infinitive. So here is the infinitive that depends on it. He wants to hold. What does he want to hold? Solum imperium Latinorum, sole power of the Latins. So we've got our subject, Turnus. We have our direct object, the only power. Okay, and we have a connector. So we're still continuing our indirect statement. Okay, so now we've got another accusative, necem, which means death or slaughter. I don't think that death or slaughter is going to be the subject of anything, so it is probably another direct object inside our accusative infinitive construction. And now the death, whose death? The death of everyone. Oh, and then here is another infinitive. So we got infinitive 1 with cupere, and an infinitive 2 with parare. So Turnus, for the second one, Turnus is preparing necum omnium, and that, of course, completes our indirect statement. Duxit diende eos ad diversiorum. Okay, and then what did he do? You know, that sentence is easy. I'll let you figure it out yourself. Ubi gladii ex omnibus locis diversorii prolati sunt, manifesta visa est res, turnusque in catenis conjectus est. Okay, when is a temporal clause marker? When this happened. Gladii, nominative. Ex omnibus locis. Okay, from all the places, and I'm assuming diversorii is genitive going with it. So we have a simple subject gladii, passive verb prolati sunt. So that's all inside a big temporal clause, which we're going to bracket off here. When this happened, we are getting to the main verb. Manifesta visa. Okay, watch out for visa est, because remember, video in the passive does not mean to be seen, but rather it means to seem. So the subject of that is res. The thing seemed, because that is perfect passive, seemed obvious, right? If you find a bunch of weapons in the guy's house. And then what happened? We've got a que connecting the two clauses. Turnus in catenis, and then passive verb, conjectus est. Okay, verb talk for a second. Conjectus est. Notice it is perfect passive. It is a two-part verb, the fourth principal part of the verb plus est. That's why we know it's perfect passive as opposed to some other tense. Confestum concilium Latinorum convocator. Okay, confestum, random adverb, concilium, subject, Latinorum, genitive, modifying that, and then passive verb again. Ibi magna indignatio orter, gladiis in medio positis. Okay, our subject is ginormous indignation. Orator, that is from the deponent verb orior, which means to rise up. And look, do I need to tell you what kind of construction this is? Let's see. We have an ablative noun here and an ablative participle there. It looks like an ablative absolute with the prepositional phrase in the middle. Why would everybody be indignant? Because they thought this Turnus guy was trying to, I don't know, stash weapons and take over the world. But now we know it's just a big government conspiracy. But they don't know that yet. Itaque Turnus indicta causa in aquam verentinam mersus est. Well, this is what happens to Turnus. But before it can happen, we've got Turnus as a subject. Indicta causa looks ablative absolute to me. Oh, into some water, the Ferentine water. Oh, and look, another passive verb. And so Turnus was verbed in that water. I wonder what Mirces est means. Rex auctoritate inter Latinos ita aucta, cum eis renovavit fuedas quod a Tullio rege antia factum erat. Okay, so we have a subject here, but like usual, before we find out what the subject does, we have to go through a bunch of dependent clause things. Okay, auctoritate, well, ablative absolute. How do we know that? Because we have an ablative noun here, a little prepositional phrase, inter Latinos, and then aucta, oh, our ablative participle. Funny how that works. Don't ignore the word ita, it's important. In this way or thus, with his authority having been increased in this way. What way? Well, in the way of planting weapons at the guy's house before he got executed for treason. Okay, cum eis, another prepositional phrase. Who is the eis here? Well, it's got to be plural and probably masculine. Oh, with the Latins. Okay, so since his authority was increased with the Latins, he did something with the Latins. Renovavit, fuedas, don't be fooled by this US. It is a neuter noun, third declension. It's accusative. He renewed the fuedas. Which fuedas? The fuedas introduced by this relative clause, which a Tullio rege, prepositional phrase, and then another perfect passive verb, which had been made by this guy previously.